So here's our unit circle. We'll first start off with the x and y axis values in radian and coordinates. So if we take a look at the axes here, we're going to see a 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 0, and negative 1. So I like to approach this in a method I call the lol method, right? Kind of like when you're texting someone something funny, right? You're like lol, right? So we take that and we see this 1, that's our L, 0 is our O, right? So L, O, O, L, right? It repeats, L, O, O, L. And we do see that this one over here is negative, but we'll worry about that later. So first, all we need to remember is that when we start from the beginning, from 0, so the unit circle goes in, it's a circle, right? We start at 0, we go around the circle counterclockwise right back to this point, right? So when we start here, the first value, our x value will be 1, 0. Then over here, 0, 1, right? So the lol method, to sum it up, encapsulates right here and right here, right? Lol, right? So if I wanted to find the y value right here, I just remember, okay, so that's over here. I will scratch that. All right. Next part. So right here, I just want to go over what exactly a coordinate is. Just a little bit of quick review, right? So a coordinate is like an x and a y value, right? So if we imagine what we saw earlier, that unit circle as a real circle has functions, right? You guys remember functions, right? So here's the function right here. Here's another way it's written. This is what you'll most likely see. It's called the equation of a circle, right? And right here represents the radius, but that's not very important here. I just want to give some background in case you guys forgot, what exactly a coordinate is. It's going to be your x value here, and your y value is 0 right here, right? So when we're memorizing these values here, we're memorizing where exactly on this circle it is located, right? So if I wanted to find a value right here, for example, 30 degrees, or at pi over 6, the x value would be root 3 over 2, comma, 1, the x value would be root 3 over 2, right? So if I went over here, I'd go root 3 over 2, somehow use a calculator, right, to find that value. That's how I would know the x value, okay? So now we're going to take a look at the positions on the axes in radians, right? So right here, this is the starting position. We're going to say this. So the values with pi inside, those are called radians, right? So we go from 0, and then at the y-axis, we have pi over 2. The other side of the x-axis, we have pi. At the bottom, we have 3 pi over 2. And if you complete the circle, it's not written here, but if you complete the circle, right, it's going to be 2 pi. And the pattern here is we start at 0, we add pi over 2, it's pi over 2, right? We add pi over 2 again, it's pi, right? Add pi over 2 one more time, 3 pi over 2. Add pi over 2 one more time, and we're at 2 pi, right? There we go, made a full circle. So now, if someone asks you, hey, tell me what the y coordinate value is at pi over 2. Hey, you could do that, right? You're going to be like, oh, hey, it's right here, right? What they typically will say, I'm going to put a pause right here. Let's see if I wrote this earlier. I did not. So, forget my example there, but now you know the value right here, right here, right here, and right here, okay? And you know that this one, as a full circle, becomes 2 pi, right? Next step. Coordinate signs. Aha, here's where I was talking about earlier. So, the x value, right here. Remember how we remembered the lol method? How it was 1, 0, 0, 1? That 1, 0, that 1, the first value, is our x value, right? And when we're talking with the unit circle, people are going to ask you what they're going to give you a value in terms of degree or radians, right? And degree or radians is degree or radians. So they'll give you a degree or radians, and they're going to ask you what the value is at that value, right? So they're going to say, hey, what is cosine 0 degrees, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, well, cosine, hey, I remember cosine is the x value. So we're going to take a look at the x value. So if I remember, what's cosine at 0 degrees? Hey, I remember the LOL method. L-O-O-L. L, aha, L, right? It's 1, right? So if I wanted to find cosine at 0 degrees, it's 1, right? If I wanted to find the y value or the sine at 0 degrees, it's 0. If I said, for example, I want to find the sine value at sine pi. Well, what's sine pi? Okay, let's think. L-O-O-L, L-O. Hey! Right, so we remember, in our head, we're going to be thinking L-O-O-L, L-O. There we go. There's our O, right? O is going to give us 0. So sine pi is 0. So that's just an explanation for the sine and cosine meaning in the unit circle, alright? And now we're going to take a look at the signs here, right? So when we're working in a unit circle, there's quadrants, right? I don't know if your teachers have gone over this, but you know, quadrants is just a place. It's a kind of like a name that we give to a sector, like a part of this coordinate plane, right? So we have our x-axis here, our y-axis here, and this top right area is going to be called quadrant 1, right? So quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. So when we're in quadrant 1, well, we can just envision in our heads, okay, we're in the top, we're in the beginning, right? The beginning, obviously, top right, right? We start from, I mean, hey, if you want to think of it like a clock, 3 o'clock, right? This is 3 o'clock. Then we're going this way around, right? So when I'm in the start, this is the starting region, positive, boom, positive, right? Positive x, positive y, positive cosine, positive x, positive y for the values of cosine, sine and cosine, right? Or cosine and sine, right? And now when we're in the second quadrant, we just need to remember negative out, right? First quadrant, positive. Second quadrant, negative out. Negative on the outside, right? In the next quadrant, negative on all of them, right? Negative x and a negative y value, right? And if we go back here, we take a look. Hey, negative on the outsides, right? And now this looks scary, right? Looks tough to memorize, but we'll get to that, right? So positive, negative out, negative all, and negative in. By in, I just mean, you know, this is the first value, second value. That's kind of how I envision it. I'm hoping you guys maybe think of it similarly, and maybe you will after this, but anyways, you know, outside, inside, right? The inside right here, the y value is negative, okay? That's how I memorized it. So there you go. Now you know the signs for the unit circle. Radian values, right? So when we want to refer to a sine, a cosine, or a sine value, well, we need to know what these values are, right? It's going to go, I don't know, it looks like so much, right? So what we're going to think of is we just need to know 3 numbers. For the denominator, right, the denominator meaning the bottom of the fraction here is going to be just 3 numbers, right? It can only be 3, 4, or 6, okay? And so remember 3, 4, 6. Now what else? What else? How can we see this? We see this unit circle right here. Check it out. Big number, 6. It's a bigger number. It's gonna fall, you know, it's like gravity, right? It's pulling, it's the heavier one. It's closer to the x-axis. It's just how it works in my mind, but maybe, you know, maybe it'll help you. Right, so the 6 is closer to the x-axis, the 4's a little less close, and the 3 is the furthest away, right? It's the same for every radian value, right? Except for, of course, like right here and right here, right? But We memorized those earlier, right? So these are the, radian values, right? So we think 3, 4, 6, right? So the denominator, whenever we want to think about it, okay, denominator, where is it sitting? Okay, is it sitting in the middle? Is it sitting the one here, right? This is like the one closest. I mean, there's this, but closest here, or is it here, right? Where is it, right? And when we think about that, we're going to think about where it is in relation to the x-axis. Are we in the third slot, second slot, first slot, right? And with that, we can think, okay, alright, so we're in the third slot, right? Heaviest to the x-axis, okay, 6, right? Your teacher will probably test you by having you fill out one of these papers so you can just remember, 3, 4, 6, 3, 4, 6, right? It's kind of like, yeah, I think you guys get the point. Alright, now we're going to get to the numerator of the angle in radians, right? So the numerator of the angle, this one's going to be more tough. This one is the most memorization, in my opinion, that you have to do for the unit circle. For me personally, this is what helps me. I know that there's other methods where you can derive or you can get the value of these numbers by doing some math to them, but this helped me, right? So I remember 235, 754, 5711. If you guys can find a way to put that in your mind and memorize it, great. If you can think of some story, oh, I saw 2 pigs and then I turned left and then I saw 3 dogs, right? I don't know. However you can, memorize this number. It's kind of like a phone number right here, right? It's 10 digits, right? So it goes 235, 754, 5711, right? And everything in the first quadrant is pi, right? Pi. You see it? Right? 235, 754, 5711, right? So I'm going to close my eyes. If I want to find, for example, this value right here, radians, right? We're going to think to ourselves, I want to find cosine of, I don't know the question, to be honest. Either way, now we know the radian values, right? So when I want to refer to a particular point on this unit circle, I'm going to remember, okay, so where was it? Where exactly do I want it? Do I want it in the middle? Do I want it in the, what did I say, like what? The first value, second value, third value. I don't know, however you like to envision it, right? In your mind, you're going to remember, okay, so 235, 754, 5711, right? So you can remember, okay, second slot, okay, 3 pi over 4, right? And we get the 4 by thinking, okay, where was it? It's in the middle, right? It's so the middle means, the heavy numbers on the bottom, 6, middle number 4, lightest number 3. Okay, so now I know 2, 3 pi, and it's in the middle, so it's a 4. Gotcha, alright? Okay, maybe that works. I hope it does. Alright, next one. Coordinate values, right? So now we're going to talk about these values here. These values are what your results are. This is like almost like one of the most important. This is like the whole point of the unit circle. It's to memorize these values right here, right? So when someone asks you like, hey, I want to find what cosine 11 pi over 6 is. Okay, so now you're going to have to envision, okay, so it's not the first quadrant because it has a number, right? A number 11 pi. It's not just pi, right? Remember pi was the first quadrant? No. So it's got to be somewhere else, right? So we think, okay, 2, 3, 5, 7, 5, 4, 5, 7, 11. Aha! Now we know where it is. It's somewhere here. Okay, wait, what was the bottom again? Heavy, it's up close to the x-axis here. We're at this part in the circle. 6, right? So now 11 pi over 6. Now we know we're talking about the numbers here. Now that we know we're talking about the numbers here, what else do we know? Hey, we remember that in this area, remember it went positive, negative out, double negative, or negative all, and then negative in, right? So the x value is positive, the y value is negative, right? So now we're going to memorize 3 values here, right? All we need to know is these 3. We're going to think, okay, when we look at the tops here, let's take a look at a pattern, right? We're going to see the top, root 3, root 2, 1, right? It's almost like a 3, 2, 1, right? Hey, remember the big ol' heavy number come to the bottom, right? Just like we did with 3, 4, 6. We're going to do the same thing here. Hey, root 3, that's like, I don't know, 1.7. Root 2, I don't even know what value that is, but I know it's bigger than 1, and it's smaller than root 3, right? So now, check it out, right? We have the heaviest one on the bottom, right? Look, check it out. So if we look at the x value, so this is how we look at it here, right? When we're talking about the heavier number, before we were talking in the denominators being heavy, this time we're talking about the x value, or the, I think x value is the best way to put it, right? So now we look at the numerator here, root 3, aha, so root 3, root 2, and 1, right? So now, there's only 3 numbers we need to memorize, right? How it works is, this one is kind of like, I mean, you don't need to remember, you guys can create your own names for this, but the root 3 pair, right? It's got the root 3 in the beginning, right? Because the root 3 is the heavy one, right? It's closer to the x-axis, right? So root 3 over 2, comma, half, right? The next one, it's always going to be a pair. This is where you should be comfortable with, right? This one's always going to be root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. Always going to be that. Your x and y values are always going to be that. The signs will change, but we remember how to do signs, right? We learned that earlier, right? So root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2, right? So next, it's half, right? Half, comma, root 3 over 2, right? It's just like this order. We're going to look at this order here kind of like our ramp, right? This is the bottom of the ramp. This is the middle of the ramp. This is the top of the ramp, right? It's always going to be root 3 over 2, comma, half. And if it's not this way, it's going to be the reverse, right? Check it out over here. Half, comma, root 3 over 2. Boom, right? Check it out. And the signs right here. We remember how to do signs. So now we know every single cosine and sine value for this entire unit circle. So now, if I want to do a little test, let me test you guys. What is sine 5 pi over 4? Close your eyes. Try to think to yourself. Sine 5 pi over 4. Where is that? I'm going to give you guys just a minute. Pause the video right here. See if you can get this. Alright guys, welcome back. So, sine 5 pi over 4. How we're going to think of this is, well, we remember that trick, right? First quadrant is pi on the numerator, right, for radians, right? So, of course, when we hear the question sine pi, 5 pi over 4, it has a pi, right? Pi, radian, right? Now we're thinking radians. Okay, first quadrant, the numerator, pi. Okay, can't use that, right? The numerator is pi. We know our number has 5 pi over 4, right? Okay, so now we think about, all right, numerators. How does that work again? We got our trick, right? 2, 3, 5, 7, 5, 4, 5, 7, 11, right? So now we're going to think 5 pi, right? So 2, 3, 5, 7, 5. Aha, there we go. Now we know where we are in the unit circle. We're right here, right? In our minds, we're going to be envisioning this location right here. Now, so 5 pi, and then, of course, in the middle location, right, we go, 6 is the heavy number, right? And we know we're in the middle, right? 6, and then we know the next one's 4. Boom, there we go, right? 5 pi over 4. Now we know we're here. What else do we know? Hey, we're in the bottom left, double negative, right? You remember that, the sign, double negative. Now what else do we know? Here's a little neat trick. If you notice, I'll actually get to the trick in the next slide, but I'll tell you it right now. You see, in the middles will always be a 4, right? Look about right here. Pi over 4. Whenever you're 4, aha, we know where we are. We're always going to be in the middle, right? Kind of like a middle here, a middle there. And if we know we're in the middle, hey, root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. Our friends, we know those. They're always going to be root 2 over 2. The signs might change, but they're always going to be root 2 over 2, right? Boom. So now we want to find sine. Okay, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Second value, right? We know negative root 2 over 2, negative root 2 over 2. Aha, it's negative root 2 over 2. Boom, done. Sine pi over 4. There we go. Degree values. Alright guys, so this one's pretty easy, right? We're looking in degrees. We start at 0. We're going to add 30. Then we add 15, 15, 30. Then it repeats. That's it. Plus 30, plus 15, plus 15, plus 30. Okay? Then you can get the entire unit circle. Start from 0. Think about it. Start from 0 right now. Add 30. Alright? You'll get a number, right? Now add 15 to that number. Right? Now you're at 45. There you go, right? You can keep doing that all the way. Right? And here's a trick to memorize where you're at, right? You know, for example, 0 degrees, obviously, you're at the start, right? 90 degrees, now you're at the y-axis. 180, now you're on the opposite side of the x-axis. Now, one more, you add 90 degrees to that 180, 270, now we're on the y-axis again. We add 90 degrees one more time, now we've made our 360, completed the circle. There we go, right? So now, when we work with this here, we're going to look in our middle value. Notice how it always ends in a 5. Hey, right? Middle value, root 2 over 2. Boom, right? That can be a little trick to get faster results, right? If you know you're in the middle, root 2 over 2, what sign is it? Hey, and you're done. There we go. And that's the unit circle, guys. Take care. Thank you.